Hi, this is the last chapter, chapter 9. The beginning, the end, and the beginning. Pain acknowledged and felt doesn't stop the progression of life and joy. I should read that again, huh? Pain acknowledged and felt doesn't stop the progression of life and joy. A joyful entourage left the city, joined by countless beings from other worlds to go to Earth for this new celebration of life and love. Upon arriving, they discovered what the gods already knew, that Satan and his ranks had set up camp there. Satan quite naturally returned to Earth, where he had spent time long ago using it as his lab. Then his name had meant light bearer, and he took light with him, as did all the angels. He was simply the brightest. All were amazed to see how dim he and his angels had become since they had last seen them. The world was a dark and empty place with a lot of water. Satan met them, protesting that this was his world, his home. Abba replied, his gaze steady, his voice firm and final. Who hung these worlds in space? Whose laws keep them here spinning? We will now finish what we started. Satan retreated, obviously angry. Then Abba turned and said to all in attendance, "It is my wish that Michael be the active one in this creation. He has pledged himself to be their companion, their teacher in their newness and vulnerability. Michael, this is your world. You do the honors." Finally, the new world. Everyone watched while Michael called into being the world's own light, and then separated the darkness into night and called the light day. He explained how the gods had agreed that this little world was to be the theater of the universe, to make the law of unselfish love visible, a new type of creation. They had decided to take their time with creating it and explain the principles that undergird a giving ecosystem. Because of this, they would be adding something each day, meeting back here for each short light space. All watched as the evening turned into the morning of Earth's first, quote, day. They toured throughout the solar system as he explained the habitable zone. He explained the laws that would govern Earth's 24-hour cycle, how they would be caused by orbits, distances, speeds, and held by the gravitational fields of the star and the planets, though as yet the sun had not been sized. He explained why the dark part would be necessary for the vegetation that would grow here, and for the people to rest and replenish their energy. He answered all of their questions, and as evening came, all could feel Ruach smile. And Michael smiled at Abba, who said, "This is good." Day 2. The next day, he made the air that would sustain life on Earth. He explained why its delicate balance of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% carbon dioxide was required to support life and to give a transparent atmosphere. He showed how the plants to come would give oxygen which the beings breathed, whose exhalation would produce carbon dioxide to support the plants. He explained how everything would give to everything else to maintain this delicate balance. And then he spoke to the waters and put some of them above the earth in a canopy to protect it, and some of them he put in reservoirs just under the earth's crust. When the temperature cooled slightly in the evening, a mist rose from the ground to water the surface. Above was a beautiful dome of air, changing colors as the light changed. Day 3. On the third day, Michael spoke to the water on the surface and gathered it into mostly one place, so there was more ground than water, which he called land. Then he called for green grass to cover it and explained the need for the chlorophyll that made it green. He described many kinds of flowers, and as he described them and the reason for their color, they appeared tall and short, tiny and large, all different shapes, many giving off sweet scents. Next, he described tall wood trunks with branches and leaves and called them trees. Some were huge and stately, some small and lacy. He described many varieties of every description and how they worked. They all had seeds to reproduce, and many of them had different kinds of fruit that he invited them to taste. What a feast! So many varieties, and each one was beautiful as well as delicious. Everywhere they looked, everything was covered with different shades of green and brilliant glowing colors. Then again came that smile that everyone could feel, Ruach's approval. And Abba closed the third day with, "This is good." Day 4. On the fourth day, everything was ready for the sun. And at just the right moment, Michael resized Earth's star to be bigger than 90% of the stars in the galaxy. And he called to it to give off a radiation that would support life. Now the Earth turned on its axis every 24 hours. And that first sunrise was an amazing experience as they watched the expanse above turn pink and then peach, now almost orange, and then ripples of brilliant gold. It was breathtaking. In awe, they watched the sky turn pale blue and then into a deeper, brilliant blue. They looked and marveled at the effect of sunlight on the colors of the world. It brought them to life, and Michael explained how it worked. The sun coming through the green of the leaves lit them, bringing happy, warm feelings to the onlookers. His description of photosynthesis, how the plants could use the sunlight and turn it into energy, was especially interesting. They watched as sunbeams played on the water, sparkling and dancing, giving life to thousands of would-be creatures. He explained how the water would absorb the sun's energy and keep everything from becoming too warm. He showed them how the sun would go down because of Earth's turning around it, and they would still have night. They watched another glorious display of colors as the vapor canopy above them turned pink, and then brilliant, deep pink before it became red, and finally purple and faded into the twilight. At evening, Michael called to the moon to become exactly 1/4 the size of the Earth and explained how its gravity stabilized the Earth on its axis and kept the climate temperate. And then they watched the moon rise full and round, orange turning yellow, so bright that it made shadows. Michael explained how the moon would reflect the sun in its orbit and mark seasons for Earth's inhabitants, as well as giving light during the night. He's happy. He also explained how the moon and the sun were just far enough apart that at times the moon would cross in between the Earth and the sun and appear to block out the sun. And then humans would be able to study their star and understand it and the laws of the universe. Also, at his command, millions of stars in the Milky Way were lit. And then Abba looked at Michael amidst all the twinkling and nodded, joining in Ruach's smile and saying, "It is good." They didn't even leave that night, enjoying so much the warm, soft darkness with all its beautiful lights and sweet fragrance, then going to the other side to see that it was day over there and coming back to where they had started. Michael always answered their questions, giving details. Then they watched another spectacular light display as the world turned to the sun on the light part of the 5th day. Day 5. This day was full of instruction as God made fish and animals that could breathe water. He showed how all the water life was interconnected from the smallest plankton to the hippopotamus and rhinoceros, which brought surprise and laughter. Then he made a long, slender creature with multiple wings and explained how it could fly. It was gorgeous, flashing iridescence as it flew. He called it a serpent. He spoke the birds into existence by describing each with its aerodynamics and giving each its own song. The air was filled with light and melody. At the end of the day, all agreed, this is good. Day 6. The 6th day, they couldn't wait to see what Michael said would be the best part. But first, there was laughter, inspection, questions, and answers as he brought all the land animals to life. And then he made the first man, Adam. He took some clay from beside a stream, and he formed the body of this man, working silently this time, focused intently on his thoughts, sculpting the lifeless body. And when he was finished, he leaned over and kissed the form, breathing into him. Everyone watching held their breath as the clay turned into the colors and substance of God's thought. Skin that glistened and eyes that opened and looked like the sky with a most wonderful smile when they looked at their Maker. Varied, intricate systems were complete in themselves and yet completely interdependent with the others. Muscles bulged and rippled as he got up and embraced his Creator as naturally as he had smiled. He was a magnificent creature. It was a spectacular moment. As Adam was exploring, Michael said to everyone around him, "It's not good for him to be alone. Let's make his counterpart. But first, let's make some animals just to please him and bring them in twos so that he desires her." And he made large and small domestic animals and brought them to Adam, male and female, to see what he would name them. It was apparent that Adam enjoyed this task and noticed that everyone but him had a mate. He even questioned Michael, and then Michael made a woman. Adam himself was asleep, so Michael could incorporate a bone from near Adam's heart to symbolize their connection. While everyone watched, Michael worked just as he had with Adam. When Michael kissed her and she awoke, it was the same love at first sight. But the onlookers gasped. Adam was superb, but she was splendid, softer and more rounded than anything they had seen. Her skin and her eyes glowed with light. She was indeed the most beautiful, graceful creature Michael had yet created. He brought her to Adam and let him name her. The attraction between them was immediate and obvious, and Michael told them that they would be able to make little humans in their own image and gave them the world and everything in it. He gave them the garden he had made for their home 3 days earlier and said, "This world is your kingdom to rule. As long as you are loyal to us, you will maintain your dominion." He invited them to walk with him in the soft green grass through the trees to the middle of the garden, where there were 2 trees some distance apart. As they walked, he told them, "All these trees are yours to eat from. They all have life-giving properties, and especially this one." And he picked some fruit from the tree of life and gave it to them. "But that one you may not eat of." He pointed to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, mixed together. "This is the only place my enemies can approach you. If you eat of that tree, you will lose your dominion, and that day you will begin to know evil and die. You are free beings, and freedom demands choices. That's why it's there. But you have no need to eat it or even go near it, because everything else is good and yours. You don't need the knowledge of evil. It will only hurt you. So stay together and away from it, and you will be safe." They were full of questions, and Michael laughed delightedly at their eagerness to know about everything. He assured them, "Every evening I will come and share more with you about your home and the universe you live in." And they walked through the rest of the garden, talking and laughing. As they came back to the others, everyone was smiling. As Abba and Michael looked at each other and nodded, their smiles bubbled up into the most delightful laughter. They could feel Ruach's strength and great pleasure holding all of them as Michael and Abba laughed together the words, "This is very good." Then Abba said, "This has been the greatest demonstration of love yet. Let's make tomorrow a celebration to commemorate your creation of Earth." "That's a great idea," said Michael. The 7th day of Earth's creation built right into their cycle. Every 6 days they will have a day to celebrate this feeling. He was barely able to contain his exuberance. It kept breaking through in laughter and dance steps. "Abba, this may be their best safeguard yet. Every week of their lives it will come around and remind them of us and this celebration." "Yes, it will remind them of who they are and where they came from," said Abba as he caught Michael's hand and twirled under it. His eyes danced with delight and deep conviction. And so it happened that he raised his voice in joyful proclamation. His deep tones rang through the new earth and made Satan and his dark angels tremble. "Tomorrow we'll begin a special custom for Earth. We will call it Sabbath, and everyone is invited to rest here and celebrate convivium, just for the joy of being together. We'll feast, share, and laugh. We will eat the fruit of all the trees. Everyone can get to know Adam and Eve, and they can get to know us. It will be a grand, relaxed, joyous, and interactive festival of rest right here on Earth." And so it was the beginning. That's the end of episode 1 of Love's Playbook. But there are now 8 others out, so you can keep reading.